Good morning. It's Loren Lockman. I'm coming to you from the Tanglewood Wellness Center in Costa Rica. And I have been asked this morning to speak about hydration from fruit versus hydration from drinking water. Right? Okay, got the question right. That's good. That's a good start. I grew up hearing, and I think the campaign started sometime probably in the late 60s. There was a lot of publicity about drinking water. And so I grew up for most of my life hearing that you should drink 8 glasses a day, that you should, now there are formulas, people say you should drink an ounce for every pound of weight that you have, all these different things. And yet it's interesting, if we think about our closest primate relatives, we find that they rarely drink water at all. And in my own experience, I went from eating a conventional diet and drinking tons of water to changing my diet many years ago now, 21 years now, on fruit and salad primarily. And for most of that time, I rarely drink water at all. And yet, I've consistently, every time we've measured it, I've consistently been close to fully hydrated, where most people show up here significantly dehydrated, even though they're drinking lots of water. What's going on there? Well, I finally started to put this together about 5 or 6 years ago. We started measuring people's hydration level, and I could actually see where people were. And then I think it was just in the last year I read something that said, some expert was saying, true or not, I can't vouch for this, but it makes sense to me based on what I've seen, that the water we drink is 10 to 20 times harder for the body to actually assimilate than the perfect water in our food. The water in our fruits and vegetables is structured by the plant. It's perfect. It's exactly what our bodies are looking for. And when we take water, this is spring water, it should be closer than anything else. But any water that's been processed or purified in any way will no longer have anything close to the same structure. And so your body will have a much harder time actually using it, which is why one of the reasons why people can drink 10, 20, glasses a day and still not get hydrated. And I've seen that. I've had people coming in here who drink tons of water and are still dehydrated. So there's several things going on. And maybe to back up, and I've shared this before on video, but to back up for you guys, how do we get dehydrated in the first place? Well, you've probably eaten corn chips before, right? How much water do they have? Just about 0, right? And which means when they come out as dry as they went in? Well, you better hope not, because that's going to be more than a little bit uncomfortable. So they're coming out wetter than they go in. They're taking water out of the body. So that's how we get dehydrated. We get dehydrated because we're eating things that are devoid of water. Think about a typical breakfast in North America. Many people start many days with a bowl of cereal and milk and maybe a glass of juice or a cup of coffee. So the milk, there's no water available to the body. The cereal was completely dry, contained no water at all. Okay, so those things, the milk's not helping. The water's actually the cereal's actually taking water out of your body. How about the coffee? Taking water out of your body. And what's a typical lunch? Sandwich, potato chips, cup of coffee or soda or a beer, cup of tea. Is that fairly typical? Right. So, how much water's in the bread? Not very much. Right. How much water is in what most people are eating most of the time? Not very much. And the coffee, tea, sodas are all taking water out of the body, as does salt, vinegar, spices, most herbs. So most people are dehydrating themselves as a direct result of what they're consuming. Now again, in nature, animals consume things that are almost always, full of water. They're eating plants, fruits, shoots, roots, leaves, all high water content. They're eating animals, and they drink the blood first, then eat the water-rich internal organs, they're getting a high water content meal. Only humans and the animals we feed, right? I mean, what happens when you feed your dog or cat nothing but dry kibble? It's going to become dehydrated. And in fact, we adopted a cat in Panama a few years before we moved. And when I took the cat in, he'd been eating almost exclusively dry food. And his fur felt like straw. And I got rid of the dry food and started feeding him only wet food. And within a month, his fur was as soft as you could imagine. He was dehydrated before. How could he not be? Right? Every time he ate a meal, it was taking water from his body. Well, people are doing the same thing. Now, we've talked before about how every channel of elimination, we eliminate through the colon, through the urinary tract, through the skin, through the mucous membranes, through the breath. All these things require water. So until the body's clean, it's using water to try to eliminate all the stuff that needs to be eliminated, which means it's very hard to get hydrated until the body gets clean. You guys here, fasting 6 weeks and 6 weeks and 26 days and 21 days, you guys you're going to get your bodies significantly cleaner than they were before. And then you're going to eliminate any old material in your body. You've had evidence there's old material, or some of you have seen some of it already, and others of you have experienced gas and other signs that there's old stuff breaking down. You're feeling it moving and hearing it. And once that stuff's out of your system, what happens is your body is no longer needing to employ a lot of water to move it out. That water can now actually go into your cells. And so we'll see, especially with you guys, because you'll have 3 weeks here refeeding, we're going to see your cellular hydration start to shift up quite a bit. And it'll continue up if you guys follow the 6-week plan I give you. Okay, but it's important to follow it. If you do that, you're going to see an amazing shift in your hydration. But ultimately, the bottom line is, first of all, until you get your body clean, it's going to be very, very difficult to get hydrated. No matter how much you're drinking or no matter what you're eating. Okay? Until you get your body clean, it's going to be hard to get hydrated. Once your body's clean, you're going to get hydrated. If you get your body clean and then go back to eating foods that are largely devoid of water and or things like coffee, tea, sodas that are diuretics and taking water out of your system, it's going to be almost impossible to stay hydrated or to continue getting hydrated, no matter how much water you drink, because all that water is going to be employed in eliminating stuff and being lost as a result of the diuretics. So, bottom line, get your body clean, eat the diet your body's designed for, and what happens? You'll stay hydrated with very little water necessary. Very little. Eventually. It may take you a while to get to that point. But, again, as I've said to you guys before, I probably, on average, drink a glass or 2 a week. It may vary, but doesn't vary very much. Okay? Doesn't change very much. Now, there's several other things going on there. It's all interrelated, but what happens when your body gets cleaner? What happens to your body temperature? Well, the average person, every time you eat a cooked meal, your body temperature tends to go up. So the average person eating cooked food 3, 4, 5 times a day, they're walking around with a low-grade fever all the time. If they have a low-grade fever all the time, they're using water that you don't need when your body is operating at a lower temperature. So I just spent an hour in the sun. I was on the phone. The only place I can get a signal is over there. I was in the sun the whole time. I was on the phone. And the sun's pretty warm. I don't sweat a lot anymore because my body temperature runs 2 degrees below normal temperature all the time. 2 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. And I would suggest you that's where the human body is designed to operate from. I mean, as tropical animals, where would you be more comfortable? At 98.6 or at 96.6? Obviously at 96.6. That's what happens when your body has a chance to cleanse itself and you stop putting things into it. Now, I've always been honest about this. I have over the years, on occasion, eaten cooked food. Every time I do, within half an hour, I start to feel warm, like, too warm, start to get hot. I feel my body temperature going up. And again, my body reacts pretty quickly to whatever I do, to whatever the conditions are. So it happens right away. But, that's another reason why you don't need as much water once your system's clean, because you're operating at a lower temperature. So, bottom line, getting hydrated from your food, raw fruits, simple leafy greens, simple salads. Once your system's clean, it's much easier to do because it requires much, much less water. And we could put a little bit of some numbers to this. We're going to have to make them up because I don't have numbers. But let's imagine for a second that with each meal, right? Let's say you would eat a whole watermelon this size or a whole papaya this size. Let's say that we know that those things are 95, 96% water roughly. So let's say you've got 16 ounces of water in that meal. And let's just say for a second that that's the right amount. It's going to vary all the time. But that's the amount of water that we should be getting with each meal, 3 times a day. 16 ounces of pure water. Okay? But let's say instead that you're going to continue to eat the way people have been eating in Western culture for a long time. Cereals and sandwiches and chips and coffee and sodas, etc. Well, now with each meal, you're not only not getting 16 ounces of pure water, but let's say, to keep the numbers easy, let's say you're actually going to lose 16 ounces of pure water to move that completely dry material through your system and to filter out the things that are diuretics, that are forcing your body to give up water. So with each meal, you're not just not getting the 16, you're actually going to be 32 ounces behind where you should be. You with me so far? Well, let's say you eat 3 times a day. That's 96 ounces of pure water that you're now behind. Okay? 3 quarts of water, roughly 3 liters. Okay, for the Europeans, Australians here. That's 3 liters, 3 quarts of water. That's pure water that you've lost. Now, the expert said drinking water is 10 to 20 times harder for your body to use than the water in your food. That means you would need a minimum of just under 1,000 ounces or 30 liters a day to get hydrated, to make up for what you've lost. Just to make up for what you've lost as a result of eating. If my numbers are right, and I'm making the numbers up, but just to get a sense of this, if these numbers were right, could you drink 1,000 ounces a day? What do you think? You'd probably be in big trouble if you tried. Because if your kidneys, both of them, are functioning well, you can filter 4 or 5 gallons of water a day. I think it's 4 gallons a day. That's the maximum your 2 healthy kidneys are really designed to process. What happens if you take in more than that? You take in more than that, what happens is you begin to dilute your electrolytes, and you wind up in trouble. You can die. As some of you may remember, maybe you heard about this. It was, I think, 3 or 4 years ago now, at a fraternity, some university in the U.S. Part of the pledge, the freshmen wanted to join the fraternity. One of the things they were forced to do, or told to do, was to drink gallons of water, like all at one time, to chug gallons of water. And 2 of the young men died as a result. Okay, 2 18-year-olds died as a result of drinking 2 or 3 gallons of water in 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, your body can't process that much. So you could not process 1,000 ounces of water per day. And that would simply be to make up for what you were losing as a result of eating 3 typical meals a day. Granted, I'm making up the numbers. I mean, you might not be losing as much as I'm saying you are. But that's not the only water needs your body has. And that's just looking at that piece of it. Even if it's only 500 ounces a day to make up for what you're losing from your meals. Okay? This is why everyone's dehydrated. this is why the experts think that where most people are, that's as good as it gets. Because they don't see people who are properly hydrated. Why would they? I mean, how would they? Does that make sense? Crazy stuff. It's crazy stuff, but, again, as I always say, you get the body clean, we learn to meet our needs the way nature intended, no problems. Now, for raw foodists watching this, I mean, your dehydrated stuff may taste good to you, and it may be fun, but you do not want to be eating dehydrated food on any regular basis, because it's sucking the water out of your body. Those kale chips and so forth, taking water out of your body. We were designed to live on fresh, whole, ripe food. Fruits and leafy greens, full water. Do that, everything changes. Everything changes. You don't age the same way because your skin is hydrated, as opposed to drying out because there isn't enough water. Your discs stay fully hydrated so you don't shrink the same way. You don't wind up with arthritis, which is largely a result of your joints drying out, your connective tissue drying out. Your eyesight, your eyes are mostly water. So your vision doesn't degrade the way most people's do as they get older because you're fully hydrated. Everything shifts. I hope that makes sense.